Hey everyone, it's me, Rai Rai, and today I'm going to be working on an oil painting of a UFO. There's a couple things I'm going to be talking about in this series. I am putting together a show. I thought on YouTube I would like to see an artist one day from start to finish talk about how they put together a show and a body of work. And I was like, why don't I just do it myself? I'm always looking for content like that. Why don't I just create it? So here it is. I am also using a new process with my oil painting because I developed a sensitivity to solvents. I've been using solvents in my oil paintings for over 20 years. And over the years, it's just taken a toll on me. I get anxiety like a day or so after using it, possibly from withdrawals. I don't have the best ventilation setup, and definitely earlier in my art career when I was oil painting, I did not follow the instructions. So always make sure you follow the warning instructions when using solvents. Some people might say like, oh, you can use alkyds then. Nope. Alkyds have solvents in them as well. So I am not using liquid original anymore. I miss it, but my studio is just not set up for it. So I'm using only oils, so there'll be no like vapors that I have to worry about in my oil painting process. But I'm going to walk you through that because it's a new process I'm using. It's an old process, but it's a new process for me. So I'll walk you through that too. This was about a 25-minute painting that I sped up the speed times 2, so you don't have to sit here for 25 minutes. But my process is fat over lean. I love glazing. So what I have to do first is always make sure a less flexible layer is under a more flexible one, or the more commonly known method is fat over lean. So every layer I'm going to be adding more oil or more fat to my previous more fat than the previous layer. So I just used a cloth to rub in a little bit of paint really thin because I don't have oil or solvent that I want to put in there because I want to use all the fat in later layers. And then after I kind of massage it into the canvas, which is oil primed, this is linen by the way, I'm going to use Q-tip to kind of rub out a composition. Now the composition I'm using is fun to play with. I just kind of come up with them from my head. Also look at a lot of imagery. There's a lot of artists I love for landscape painters. Rembrandt is a big one. And he does mostly portraitures, but I love the landscapes he has. A lot of the old masters just have these beautiful, glowy kind of landscapes. And that's kind of what I'm going for with these little paintings. The blue I added was a cobalt turquoise mixed in with a little bit of perylene black. Never used perylene black. I was like, let me try it out. It's kind of like a greenish black. And it worked really well. I'm also using titanium white. The brushes I'm using are, this is a Blick Master Stroke, so it's like a sable brush. And then the other ones, which are one of my favorite brushes, is the Winsor & Newton Monarch brushes. They're synthetic brushes, so they don't fall apart as much as the sable brushes. And this is pretty much my process. I'll talk to you a little bit about it. I go in with the darks. Well, first I lift out some of the lights with the Q-tip just to form the composition. Then I'll throw in some darks. I take a lot of photos where I live or where I go to work, and it's always foggy in San Francisco, especially during the summer. So I am painting what I know. Maybe you live somewhere where it's very crisp night skies. Here in California we get them, but right now it's all about fog, and that's kind of what I'm recreating. I'm using titanium white. I also added a little bit of Scarlet Lake. Let me make sure that's the right color. Yeah, Scarlet Lake is like this really bright, light cadmium kind of color by Winsor & Newton Artist Oil Colors. And then I'm dotting in the titanium white and just working it out. And if you've never used oil painting, this is a fun little painting you could do with your oil painting because you could get such blendy sky colors and everything blends in so well. I almost have to keep myself from blending things too much. Also, linen is great because it has a weave to it, like a texture that's irregular, so it doesn't feel like a grid like canvas. But also, so it holds a little bit of paint, but also it's pretty smooth compared to canvas. So you get a very beautiful blend. These master stroke brushes by Blick are filberts. They're made with the red sable, like I said, so it's really soft. The filberts are nice because they're round, so you get really nice kind of cloud texture. And yeah, I feel like I wanted to find a subject matter that would lend itself well for a new series of paintings. And I feel like UFOs are there because of that light, that glow that happens. And I feel like this painting can be done right now. But in true Rai Rai Paints fashion, I'm going to try to push it as much as I can. I think in the future I will do more quick sketches, but this one, yeah, I want to see how far I could push it. Like, I'm not going to try to create like a whole old master kind of feel, but I do feel inspired by that, and I do want to add some glazing layers. So if you've never glazed with oil painting, how that works is you paint a layer underneath and you pretty much complete a painting. You could focus mostly just on a monochromatic painting, meaning just like almost a black and white or white and one color. And then later, after it's dried completely thoroughly, you can glaze in with a very thin layer of medium, a lot of medium with your oil, a transparent layer, and it'll make it feel like it's glowing. And I feel like that really lends itself to this subject matter. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm adding a little bit more of yellow as well. The yellow I'm using is, let me check real quick. Oh, that's just a cadmium yellow. So it's not a lemon yellow like I usually use. It's more of a warm yellow, just a cadmium yellow. But yeah, glazing is a great way to kind of add into your painting, make it more luminous. If you see all those kind of old master paintings where the skin is glowing or the sky is glowing, a lot of times it's because they layered up so many thin, transparent layers of paint. So you're kind of seeing through all the layers, and the light is illuminating the paint behind all those layers, and it's literally is glowing through. So any kind of color adjustments, I'm thinking, oh, I could always do that later when I glaze, but I do want to kind of finish up the painting as much as I can, like, so it'll feel like a standalone painting. Now, my process is I'm not going to be using mediums. A medium is usually when you have a fat and a solvent mixed together. And I'm not going to be doing that because I'm not using solvents. And a lot of painters in art history that are famous didn't use solvents because solvents weren't as readily available or weren't as popular until much later. So when you see some old painters, possibly like Rembrandt and Jan van Eyck's and painters, from centuries ago, you'll notice that they put, part of the reason why they were glazing a lot and using thin layers is because they needed the paint to kind of dry faster without the aid of solvents. So layering the oil paint is going to be a very slow process for me. I'm going to have to wait many weeks before I layer on the next coat, which is fine with me. That's why I'm going to get a bunch of paintings going so that when I get to glazing, and I hope you get to see all this process, I'm going to try to document it. You'll see I'll have a lot of different paintings I'm working on and glazing on them. Glazing for this size painting will only take a few minutes. I'll put on a really thin layer of yellow, maybe where I want it to be a little bit more golden color, and then a little bit more reds or blues or something in the sky, and then that'll be it. It'll be like a 2-minute video of me glazing. So a lot of the heavy lifting is happening now. And then when it's I'm not using any solvent, so this paint is probably going to take a couple weeks to dry. The white specifically, because it has safflower oil in there. Safflower oil will take longer to dry than even the linseed oil. Why does white usually have safflower oil? It's because safflower oil dries a lot less yellow than linseed oil. So you're able to kind of get these more kind of more perfect whites. While I am tempted to keep everything really thin, I do like a lot of Rembrandt paintings, especially his later works, where he gets very much almost impasto with his whites and then glaze over it, and then while the glaze is still wet, he wipes it out a little, and it gives it like this golden glow. So I want to practice that on these paintings as I'm learning more about this new process. Since everything was so cold and gray, I decided to make this little cityscape in the background really warm. So it almost looks like a forest fire right now, but it's actually a little city I'm painting back there. I was thinking of painting kind of like, I don't know, San Francisco skylines and stuff, but I like the thought of these feeling classical in a way. So I want them to have, maybe it's like London back in the day, or Paris, or actually even maybe something more desolate, maybe like New England, the colonies, or maybe it is when we became the United States already. But I want the paintings to feel old in a way. So I want the buildings to have almost like a 18th century or 19th century kind of feel. I haven't been in New England much. I haven't grown up there. I grew up in the West Coast, but I'm drawing a lot of kind of what I'm seeing and feeling from photos I've seen, and I always think of water and estuaries and a lot of waterways all the time. I do live by a bay, San Francisco Bay, so I do see a lot of waterways at night, and that's kind of what I'm painting from. It's these beautiful cold ripples you get from the moonlight, but instead of the moon, it's this UFO. I hope you enjoyed this first painting I started for this series. Actually, I did little ones, but this is the first one on linen, like a larger format. But yeah, you'll be seeing a playlist of the series of paintings that I'm working on. For some reason recently, I'm just feeling called back to my childhood of things I feared, and I don't fear now as much, I think, because there's a lot of scary things you realize are happening in the world around you as an adult. But when you're a kid, your mind just runs crazy, and your imagination is the scariest thing. Sometimes it's a godsend, but at the same time, it's what terrified me at night was the idea of getting abducted by a UFO. But yeah, so this series it's probably going to delve into more things like krakens and like mythological creatures as well. But for now, I'm really feeling landscape. I've never done much landscape, so it's something I want to explore. Here's kind of showing a little bit of the thickness of the paint that I'm going to be waiting for it to dry for a couple weeks. To clean my brushes without solvent, I'm just using safflower oil because it doesn't dry very fast. So I'm able to kind of really work my brushes in there. I dab them out until they're completely clean, and then you use a really good brush cleaner to clean them out. Don't forget to like and subscribe.